Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of Math 133. Today we're going to be covering the Chapter 2 review, and we also have some projects to do. So in Canvas, you can see all of these are due this upcoming Thursday. So the Chapter 2 review worksheet, we're going to be doing on that together. Part of the Chapter 2 review worksheet is this Chapter 2 review worksheet Google project. Okay, so they're very closely related, but we're going to be doing those together as well. Now, there's also this 2.3 notes Google Sheet project. You did the 2.3 notes last week, and the 2.3 lecture notes had a Google Sheet project tied to it. So if you've already filled it out and submitted it, good job. Or if you've already filled it out at the very least, it's here that you would submit it. We didn't get a chance to work on that Google Sheet project together in class last time, so I wanted to make sure to give you a little bit of extra time. Okay. But these Google Sheet projects are pretty much the same steps. Okay. But we'll talk about those steps and we'll work on it together. Uh, yeah. Haven't if you weren't able to attend last week on Tuesday or Thursday, make sure you take a look at the recordings. You don't need to watch both of the recordings. There's a recording of the morning and a recording of the evening. Either one is fine. They're the same information. But this is week 2. So if you miss both of the Zoom sessions this week, in order to get your participation points, you're going to need to fill out the discussion board. So up here is the weekly participation discussion boards. Week 1, there's no class, so that one's not available. You don't need to fill anything out for that. Week 2, though, is going to be due on Friday if you miss the Tuesday Zoom and you miss the Thursday Zoom. Okay. Let me change this student view. So anyway, but those of you who are watching this on Zoom right now, you don't need to do any of that. You don't need to do the discussion board. Hold on, let me get to it. Here it is. If you're on the Zoom, you get your participation points, so you're good to go. Okay. But that's going to be true of every week. So make sure you keep that in mind if there is a week that you do miss the Zoom. Okay. All right. So let's look at the Chapter 2 review worksheet. Chapter 2 review is going to start on page 304 in your course pack. Okay, so you'll want to go get that out. You'll want to have that in front of you because, like I said, we're going to work on this together. So I would prefer if you have a paper, you have the paper in front of you, pencil in hand, and you're filling out the answers as we go. That's going to be way better than, just watching me do it and trying to do it on your own later. Okay. All right, but if you click on the Chapter 2 review worksheet in Canvas, this is where you'll upload it, okay? And you'll also notice that there is a button right here that says this link. When you click on that, it brings you to this Google document. This Google document is going to have all the data sets that are located somewhere, all the links to those data sets for all the different worksheets, okay? So this one right here is the Chapter 2 review number of pet dogs Google Sheet, okay? So if you're looking at let's see, visualizer. So if you're looking at the front page, page 304 of the Chapter 2 review worksheet, there's a table. This table right here has a bunch of spots for you to fill in, okay? But if you click on that link, it's going to take you to a Google document that looks like this that has that exact same information, right? You can see right here, my frequency is 2942. That's the same as these 2942, okay? So like I said, the project is very closely related, okay? You can also get to this by clicking on the Chapter 2 review worksheet, Google Sheet project, okay, which is right here. And that will have a link to the project. It'll also have a link to like a video on how to do it, okay? Yeah. So what's this one? Project document with instructions. Okay, so this is also going to have some instructions for you. Okay. But like I said, we're going to do this together. So I'm going to get here. Okay. I'll drop the link here in the chat for you in case you didn't follow any of that. So this is where we are. This is where we're going to start. This is what we're going to work on first. Okay. All right. This is the chapter two review worksheet. It's the Google Sheet project. And we're going to fill in these numbers here. Okay. But right now, I can't fill anything in because it's view only. Okay. And that's because this document is the one saved for everyone to have access to. And so if you started entering your numbers here, everyone would see those numbers entered in. Okay. So you need to make your own version. You need to make a copy. So we're going to go to File, make a copy, and you can name it whatever you want. All right. We gotta change these dates. Um, all right. So if you can put your name in there, that would help me. You don't have to. Okay. Change the folder that you're saving it in because you can't save it there. You can save it here in a folder that you've made, or you can save it in My Drive. Either of those is fine. And then make a copy. And here it is. So you'll notice now I can fill in I can edit this, okay? Because this is my document now. All right. So we're going to we're going to start by filling in all these different entries here. Now, if you've used Excel before, Google Sheets is very similar, okay? And so if you want, if you prefer Excel, you could do File download instead of File make a copy, and you can download this into Excel. Excel, not every computer has Excel. You have to pay for it, but if you have Excel, that's what I use all the time. Okay. Google Sheets is, like I said, it's pretty close. There's a few things in Google Sheets that I don't like. I would prefer Excel, but for today's project, it's not a big deal. Google Sheets has everything I need. So we need to fill in the class midpoints. So this table is showing the number of pet dogs in thousands for all the countries of Europe. Okay. So, in other words, each country has pets, right? Each country has dogs. So, like if we were looking at Spain, maybe Spain has, I don't know, 1 million dogs. Okay. These numbers right here are in thousands. So, this is actually, so, or sorry, these numbers here are in thousands. So, this is not actually the number 1,999. It's 1,999,000. Okay, because we're measuring this in thousands. So if Spain had 1 million dogs, they'd be in this bucket. Okay, there's 29 countries in Europe that are in this class, in this bucket. And we're going to use that kind of those in, interchangeably. Sometimes I'll say class, sometimes I'll say bucket, sometimes I'll say group. I'm just referring to this row. Okay, this row is measuring, okay, how many pet dogs does your country have? If you have somewhere between 0 and 2 million pet dogs, then you're going to be in this bucket. Okay. So Vatican City is a country, they probably have 0, right? So they're going to be in this bucket. Okay. On the other hand, if you have 10 million dogs, you're going to be down here in this class or group or bucket, whatever you want to call it. Okay. All right. So uh, at some point, maybe not today, but we're going to be looking at these kinds of things and calculating averages or means and standard deviations. Okay. To do that, we need these class midpoints. Okay. So in other words, this bucket is anywhere from 0 up to 1,999,000. That's a pretty wide range. Okay. So when you have a range of data, you'll often ask yourself, all right, what's the middle? Okay. What's like a normal number in that group? Okay. And so that's what this class midpoint is what's the number directly in between 0 and this 1999. Okay. Um, so to do that, we can use a formula, and I'll write it down for you right here. To do the midpoint, you take the upper limit. Oh, sorry, totally wrong. That's upper limit. You'll do the lower limit plus the next lower limit. And I put that in parentheses and divide by 2. I wrote upper limit a second ago. I confused myself. We don't use the upper limit because that upper limit, by the way, this is not actually 1,999. As I said before, it's actually even crazier than that. It's 1,999,999. Okay.
Can you
So
explain why
one
that
more than
is?
that would
Because
be
I'm
two.
stuck on that.
Oh,
Like,
go ahead, Kevin.
why is it 1,999,000? It's
Oh,
confusing considering it says thousand right above it and it's in the thousands right there.
well, yeah, that's why they did thousands. We could have done millions. We could have done it as 0 to 1.9 million. We could have said this is measured in millions. What we were trying to avoid here is we were trying to avoid writing it with decimals. So technically, this is the number 0 to 1,999,999. Okay, if we were measuring it just in single dogs. Okay,
So would a trick be to add three zeros onto this when it says in thousands?
yeah.
That's yeah, that's what I just did. Sorry, Kevin.
Okay,
And
that's way okay. Thank you.
sorry. Yep.
Um, okay, so we're gonna measure our class midpoint in thousands as well. So we're just gonna use the numbers that they gave us. All right, so for the midpoint, you do the lower limit plus the next lower limit and you divide by 2. Okay. So what does that look like? So for this particular group right here, I have two numbers. I have upper limit and lower limit here. What's the lower limit? 0. Good. So, what's the next lower limit? That's what I wrote on my paper right here. The next lower limit is if I go to the next class down, you guys got it. Thank you, Eva, Kevin, and Caleb. You guys got it. 2,000. Okay. So that is the way that I'm going to calculate this. Okay. So I'm going to do equals parenthesis 0 plus 2,000, close my parenthesis, and then divide that by 2. And you're right, that is 1,000. Okay. Now, I don't want you to just write the number 1,000 here. I actually want you to put in this formula. Okay. When I'm grading this, I'm not grading your answers, I'm grading your understanding. And that's going to be true of the entire class. If you are putting in an answer and I can see that you made a mistake, but it's clear that you know what you're doing. It's clear that it just missed something minor. You're still going to get credit for it. Okay. Or maybe you get 1 point off, but there's often times where if you show what you're doing, I can give you points even if you're not right. Okay. So don't put in just 1,000 here. You're going to type equals parenthesis 0 plus 2,000 close parenthesis divided by 2 like this equals open parenthesis lower limit is 0 plus 2,000 is the next lower limit, close your parenthesis and divide by 2. Now, if you click on this cell, you'll notice that up here I have this formula bar. This formula bar shows you what's actually in there. The 1,000 here is displaying what the result is, okay? But if I type the number 1,000, I click on that, I can see that the formula bar just says 1,000, okay? It doesn't say the formula that I had there, okay? So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. Now I've got my formula back, okay? Now, do I have to do that for all of these cells? No, we're not going to do that for all these cells. We're only going to do it for one of them, okay? If this one, by the way, if this one didn't have a lower limit, I would just do the midpoint for this one and then do some adding or subtracting, okay? So for this one, though, I'm going to do that one time. And then for all these other ones, because this, I've only got what? I've got 5 more to do. If you type in that formula again, you got to do it 5 more times. It's not a huge deal, but what if I had like 10 more classes? Or what if I had 100 more groups? I don't want to have to type that formula over and over for all of those, okay? So instead, we're going to use a different formula that's going to calculate the rest of these automatically. Now, to do it, we need to find the class width, okay? To do that, it's very similar to the midpoint. You take the next lower limit minus the lower limit divided by 2. Oh, wait. Why am I dividing by 2? Thank you. Elaine's laughing at me like, Joe, you're a moron.
Sorry. I'm sitting here trying to find my audio, but
Oh, you're good.
blinked everything out.
It's just the next lower limit minus the lower limit. Okay, so all right. What does that look like? So we'll type equals. So we said that the next lower limit was 2,000, yes? Minus, and we said the lower limit was 0. So in this case, the class width is 2,000, okay? And that makes sense. So like if you go from 4,000 to 6,000, that's 2,000 steps, right? If you go from 8,000 to 10,000, that's 2,000. There's a difference of 2,000, right? So class width is basically how wide the bars are going to be in our histogram. We're going to do a histogram at the end of this, okay? Why does that matter? So, it wasn't even in the table. Like I calculated this and I didn't even need to, right? Well, I do because it's going to make things a lot faster. Because what I can do for cell B3, click on cell B3 up here, and you can type equals, and then click on the cell above it, and then plus 2,000, because that's our class width, okay? What that does is that calculates the next class midpoint for us using the previous class midpoint, okay? So in other words, the midpoint between 2,000 and 4,000 is 3,000, which makes sense, okay? So what I did was I did the rest of the midpoints. You click on the cell. Click on the cell value of the previous, I can't even spell, midpoint plus class width. Okay. So you click on the previous midpoint and then add the class width. So I'll show you again. So I do equals, click on the previous class midpoint, which is this one. And you'll notice it doesn't fill in 1,000, it fills in B2. The location of that 1,000 is cell B2. And then I hit Shift plus, and then 2,000 is our class width. And then I hit enter. Now, Google Sheets says, oh, I think I know what you're doing. I have a formula, and if you hit the check mark, it'll fill in the rest of those class midpoints for you, okay? If you are in Excel, you can't do that. Instead, what you'll do is you'll go back up here to this cell and you'll copy this formula down. So you can hit copy and then highlight these cells and right click and click paste. Okay. Or another option for copying and pasting that formula is if you click on the cell B3 that we just filled in our answer on, there's a little dot in the lower right-hand corner. If I hover over that, it turns my cursor into a plus. I can click and drag that down. And if I click and drag that plus down, it fills in that formula. So now what it's doing is it's taking each of the previous cells and adding 2000. So like this one right here, the formula bar up here says this is equals B5 plus 2000. It's taking the previous one, which is 7000, and then adding 2000 to it. Okay. Great. So now that I've got all of my class midpoints, let's move on to our next column. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we have our frequencies already, and frequency is just a count. It's the number of countries in that class. Okay. I'll come back to that because we are going to need that information. The next thing we have is the relative frequency. So relative frequency, these numbers will all be numbers between 0 and 1. These are going to be percents. Okay. Relative frequency. To calculate relative frequency, what do? We click on the frequency, and you're going to click the cell of the frequency, okay, divided by the total. So how do we do that? You click on the frequency divided by the total. So first of all, I need the total. So I'm going to come down here to cell C8, and I'm going to type equals sum, open my parenthesis, and Google wants me to do the sum from C2 to C7, which is exactly what I want to do. So if you hit tab as it's giving you that suggestion, it will just calculate it for you, okay? Which is 41. If you're in Excel or if it doesn't give you the right thing, you can click the places that you want to sum. So I'm going to click the 29 and drag it down to the 2 because those are the numbers that I want to add up. Close my parenthesis and hit enter, and I have 41. There's 41 countries that we are looking at. Okay. That is my total. Okay. Why did I need that total? I need that total because that's what I'm going to divide by in my relative frequency. So in my relative frequency, I'll do equals, and then I need the frequency divided by the total. So in this case, it's 29 divided by 41. Now I'm not going to type 29 because if I do that, I got to do that for all 6 of these cells, okay? I'd like to have a formula that I can copy and paste into here. So I'm going to click the cell of the frequency, which in this case is C2. So you can click that, or you can just type C2, okay? And then divided by 41. Now, do I want to click the 41? No, I'm just going to type 41, okay? And Google has a suggestion. It's almost right. The problem is it also does the total divided by the total. So sorry, Google, you are wrong in this case. I'm going to reject your suggestion. Okay. But what I did was I typed equals C2 divided by 41. In my notes here, what I'm writing out, I have the frequency divided by the total. I wrote cell because I'm going to click the cell there. I did not write cell for the total here. So I'm just going to type out what the number is. Same thing up here. I clicked the cell of the previous midpoint, but I typed out the number 2000. I didn't write cell here. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense what we're doing here. So
Kind of makes
equals,
sense. I kind of lost me at frequency. Like mine stuff doesn't pull up when you guys hit tab and stuff to fill in your equation. Mine doesn't pull that up, so I got lost really quick because I'm
it's
trying to
okay.
type this out.
That's okay if it doesn't fill it in. So you would type equals sum, And then if it doesn't if it doesn't give you a guess, that's okay. What you'll do is you'll click where you want to sum and hold your left mouse button down and drag it down until you get to here. So we are summing cells C2 through C7, and then you'll close your parenthesis. So the formula will look like this. Sum from C2 colon C7, close parenthesis. Okay. All right, so for our relative frequencies. So this is our formula, C2 divided by 41. And I'm going to copy that formula down for all these other cells. So again, there's a little dot in the lower corner. And if I drag that down, it'll fill in the rest of my relative frequencies, okay? Or if you right click and copy and then paste all of these. So if I paste, okay, oops, if I paste all those in, I get all of these decimals, okay? Now, this is a bit too much. If I asked you the relative frequency for this class, I don't want to know it's 0.707317. That's too many decimal digits, okay? I would like just 3 decimal digits. So highlight column D by clicking on the D at the top. If you click on the D at the top of the screen, there's a button right here that says decrease decimal places or increase decimal places. These little dot zeros with arrows, okay? If you click on the decrease one, what happens if you keep clicking it a few times, it gets more and more reasonable. So I'd like 3 digits after the decimal. So 0.707. This is 70.7%. Okay. That's a much more reasonable thing. When we're, talking with people in our business or talking with like the CEO, they'll usually want like whole number percentages, like 71%, or maybe 1 digit after the decimal, 70.7. 2 digits after so if you have 4 digits after the decimal, that's probably more accurate than you need to be. Um, but yeah. Anyway, we're not just learning how to do math. We're also learning how to present this information to people. So highlight. You click on column D. In Excel, same thing. There'll be a button. One of them will increase. One of them will decrease. So if you click the increase one and you're like, oh, that went the wrong way, just click the other one. Okay. All right, great. So that's our relative frequencies. Next, we're going to do cumulative frequency. Now, cumulative frequency is 2 steps, okay? The first cumulative so for the first cumulative frequency, we are just going to copy the frequency. Right? Copy the frequency of the first cell. This one's easy. Okay. You can just type 29 or you can do equals and click on the 29. This is the first frequency, 29. That's it. Okay. Now, Google is going to guess that you want all of them, and that is not correct. Sorry, I'm going to reject your suggestion again, Google. Because all this is, as I said, this is a 2-step process. The first cumulative frequency is just the 29. Okay. The rest of them, we need to do some adding. Okay. Rest of the cumulative frequencies.
Are you writing notes?
What's that?
Yeah, there you go.
Am I
I
writing
just want to
notes?
see
Yeah.
notes.
I just don't, yeah. For the rest of the cumulative frequencies, okay, what you'll do is you'll click on the previous cumulative frequency, and you'll click on the cell of that for the previous cumulative frequency, and you'll add the frequency of that row. And you click on the cell for that as well. So we're going to click on the cell for 2 different things. This looks complicated. It's previous cumulative frequency plus the frequency of that row. What the hell does this mean? Okay, don't worry, it's going to make sense in a second. Okay, sorry for the swearing. All right, we're going to type equals. Okay, and
Um,
then we're going to
so
click on.
sorry.
Go ahead.
On an iPad, isn't there another place to click and make the decimals on a Mac different?
Um, that I am not sure. So in an iPad, so you don't have this menu up top. There's probably a button that you need to click on that'll bring the menu down for you. For now, don't worry about reducing the decimals right this second. Let's just keep going forward with what we've got, and we'll deal with that in a second, okay? All right, so what I'm going to click on for this, I'm going to type equals, okay? I'm going to click on the previous cumulative frequency. So cumulative frequency is this column E. The previous one was 29, so I'm going to click on the 29, which is cell E3. And then I'm going to do plus the frequency of that row. So I'm in row 3 right now. So I'm going to click on this one over here, which is the 4, which is cell C3. So my equation is equals C2 plus C3. And that's actually what Google guessed I was going to do, and it was correct, okay? So I could have just accepted their suggestion, but I click on, basically in this blank cell, I click on the button, I click on the cell above it, and I click on the cell that's 2 steps to the left, okay? And then hit enter. Right? And the answer is 33. What does that even mean? What cumulative frequency is doing is it's taking that frequency plus all the frequencies below it, okay? So when I get down here to this last one, 2 plus all the frequencies below it will be my total, which in this case is 41, okay? So, yeah, basically we are taking each of these and adding slowly up until we reach the end, okay? Now, I said this was a two-step process. Well, I've done 2 steps. Aren't I done? We are. What we're going to do is we're going to take that cell E3 where it says 33, and I'm going to copy that formula down just like we did before. I can hover over the little dot in the lower right-hand corner, or you can do Control C and paste the rest of them below. I'm going to drag that formula down, click and drag that little dot down, and I'm going to fill in the rest of my cumulative frequencies. And the last one, this one's 41, should match my total. Okay. You don't need to highlight these, but I'm going to highlight them just to show you that these numbers should be the same. Okay. Like I said, you don't need to fill those in, but you can. These numbers at the top, these numbers should also be the same. This one should match this one. That was our step 1, right? For cumulative frequency. Those should match. Okay. Again, you don't need to highlight them. That's just to show you what matches with what. Okay. All right. So that's our cumulative frequencies. We have one last one to do, and that is cumulative relative frequency. So I'm going to write some notes here. Cumulative relative frequency. Now, there's 2 different ways you can do it. I'm going to do it the faster way. At least that's what I'm going to write on the notes here. I'll show you both ways. Maybe not today, but I'll show you both at some point during the class. The way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to copy the same way that we did relative frequency, except I'm going to do it as the cumulative this time. So it's just this same formula with the word cumulative added. So you click on the cell of the cumulative frequency divided by the total. Okay. Click on the cell of the cumulative frequency divided by the total. That's what we're going to do, at least for this particular one. Okay. So I'm going to do equals. I'm going to click on the cell value of the cumulative frequency, which in this case is this 29. Don't click on this 29 over here. You want to click on cell E2. Okay. And then divide by the total, which in this case is 41. And good try, Google. You're right, except for the 0 at the bottom. So I don't like your suggestion. I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to copy this down. You can right click and copy, and then right click and paste, or you can hover over that little dot, left click and drag it down. Okay. Now, and these are my cumulative relative frequencies. Again, we want to reduce the number of decimal digits on that. Tegan will help you with that in a little bit. I have to look it up, but for now, just leave it as is, okay, with a whole pile of decimals. And you can just submit it that way for today. Um, and these are our cumulative relative frequencies. So what do these mean? This is basically, again, taking the relative frequencies and adding that cell value plus all the cell values below it. Okay. So there's two things I want to point out. The first one is that this first cumulative frequency, relative frequency, matches up with this relative frequency. So I'll just highlight that. You don't need to highlight it. This is just to show you that these numbers should match. Okay. And the last one is always going to be 100%. Okay. So I won't fill that in. I won't color that. But if your last number is not 1.0 or 100%, then something went sideways. Something went wrong. Okay. All right. The last thing we're going to do for this project is we're going to make ourselves a chart for this. Okay. So the last thing that we'll do is we will highlight the frequency column, which is from cell C2 down to C7. You can include the title C1 if you want, but do not include the total, because if you include the total, you're going to get something crazy. Okay. So only highlight from cell down to cell C7. Okay. And then in Google, you'll click Insert Chart. And it'll make a nice little bar graph for you. Okay. Now it puts it right on top of the table, which is very inconvenient. So you can slide it over here to the left, or you can slide it down here. Either way is fine. Okay. But this is basically taking our cumulative frequencies and making a bar chart. Technically, this should be a histogram, but we're not going to mark you off for that. And also, like, we should have a label on the x-axis and a title here. I'm not going to worry about any of that. I just want to see a single chart, throw it over here to the right, and we are done. Okay. So what I did was I highlighted my frequencies, I hit insert chart. Now, if you had included the 41, you're going to get something wonky. You're going to get one giant bar at the end because that is your total. I don't want that. Okay, so don't include your total. It should look like this. Okay. All right, now that we're done with this, let's submit it. So we're going to click on share in the upper right. Change the restriction to anyone with the link. So now general access, change it to anyone with the link. And then you're going to click on copy link. And we're going to submit this for our Google Sheet project. Okay. So in Canvas over here, today's day 3. Click on the Google Sheet project. Don't click on this one yet because we haven't actually started the worksheet. Do Chapter 2 Review Worksheet Google Sheet Project. Click on that. And scroll to the bottom and click where it says web URL, and you can paste your giant link that we just copied and hit submit assignment, and you get confetti. I got thumbs up. There we go. All right. Now that was just the Google Sheet project. Let's go back here and we can fill in the rest of everything. Okay. So that was the Chapter 2 Review Worksheet Google project. Okay. The 2.3 Notes Google Sheet project is going to be the same steps. Okay. So you would click on this right here where it says this link. Okay. And you'll fill, oh, that's going to take you here. That's not what I wanted. I want the 2.3 Notes Google Sheet, which is this one. So let me drop the link for you for this. Okay. And you'll do the same steps and fill in the class midpoint, the width, the total, all of these different things, and then do a bar chart. Okay. So you did the 2.3 lecture notes already, where they showed you how to do this. Okay. And the steps are going to be the same thing that I did. Okay. If we have time at the end of class, we might work on this together. If not, like I said, it's the same steps, should take you just a little while, and have this done by Thursday. Okay. For now, though, I'd like to work on the Chapter 2 review worksheet, which is on page 304. Okay. All right. So page 304, start with your name. I would really prefer if you do put your name on here. It's okay if you don't. I can figure out whose it is, but when I'm grading them, sometimes I have to download them, and then it does make it a lot easier if you have your name on it. All right. I'm not going to mark you off on it for that. Okay. This table right here is exactly the table that we just did for our Google Sheet project. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill in the numbers that you got just on the paper here. Okay. So what was this? This was 0.707, right? This was 2933, right? So you can do that on your own. Okay. Um, but fill in all of those numbers. That's easy. Yes? All right. So when we're doing our worksheets, uh, we're going to work on them together in class. So we're going to do this entire worksheet. But those of you in Zoom, so you're going to work on this together. If you're watching this on the recording, what I'll do is I'll give you a bunch of hints, especially for the ones that I think are difficult. And then I'll skip over the ones that I think you can do on your own, and then I'll stop the recording. So coming to Zoom is definitely the best way to pass this class, because we're going to do the entire thing. But do you have to? No, you can do this on your own without the coming to Zoom. But for this one, I'm gonna skip this. Let's talk about the shape of the distribution. We'll come back to question B. Okay. For the shape of the distribution, skewed left, symmetric, or skewed right. Okay. Well, that's why we did the graph. So if I come over here, back over here to my graph here, I can look at this and say, okay, well, would this be skewed left or skewed right? So if you stand at the top, and which way does the tail go? The tail goes off to the right. So you're right, Kevin. It is skewed right. Okay. That's one of the reasons I didn't want you to include that total bar at the end, because that total bar was here at the end, and it made it more symmetric-ish. Okay. Now it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetric for it to be symmetric, but in this case, it's definitely skewed right. All right. Next, number of dogs in a country is a qualitative, quantitative discrete, or quantitative continuous. Um, so first, is it qualitative or quantitative? Number of pet dogs in a country. Is that a qualitative or quantitative variable? We'll deal with discrete and continuous in a second. Qualitative or quantitative? Kevin says it's quantitative. Same answers, different answers? Agree, quantitative? Yes, quantitative. Thank you, Eva. So, if you go to a country and you ask, okay, how many pet dogs are there here? You're going to get a number. And that number is something that you can do math with. Okay. If I have 1 million dogs in Spain and 2 million dogs in France, I can say, yes, this one is higher than this one. They have more or less dogs, okay? It makes sense to compare those numbers or add them. How many dogs are there in France and Spain combined? 3 million. That makes sense, okay? So it is quantitative. So now, is it discrete or continuous? Discrete means that there are only certain values that you can get. Now, in this class, we are going to define discrete as whole numbers. It's not technically true. For example, if I was measuring something in dollars, like how much money does this country make, that is technically a decimal and technically discrete because you can't have half of a penny, okay? But for this class, we're going to say that if it uses decimals, it is continuous. Continuous means it can be any number you can think, okay? Including like decimals or, a third, which is 0.33333, or, pi, whatever. In this case, can you have 3.5 dogs in your country? No, you cannot. So it is not continuous. Yes, Kevin, it is quantitative discrete, okay? Um, if you want to get technical about the mathematical definition of discrete and you want to argue with me that like, oh, wait, I put this, but it's discrete because of this, this, and this, or continuous because of this, this, and this, I'm happy to give you those points. In this case, though, it doesn't matter the mathematical definition of discrete or our class definition, which is discrete can't use whole number or can't use decimals. In both cases, for this particular question, it is definitely discrete, right? You cannot have half of a dog. Well, we're counting live dogs, right? Can't, so, okay. I'm gonna skip through the rest of these and we'll come back to them, okay? Let's go on to the next page, page 305. This graph shows all the users for social networks worldwide as of February 2025. What type of graph is shown above? What do you guys think? Time series, bar chart, frequency, histogram. What do you think? Kevin says histogram. Agree, disagree, same answers, different answers. What do you think? Elaine says it's qualitative. Oops, caps lock on. She screamed it at us. It's fine. I mean, you can scream that when you're like, no, you're wrong. It's fine. Um, what do you guys think? Caleb agrees. Okay. So time series needs to have time on the x-axis. That is not what we have. We have social networks, so it's not that. Definitely not a pie chart, right? That's crazy. A frequency bar chart would measure all of the heights in bars, which is actually what I have here. This is a bar chart. But a histogram is a special type of bar chart where the x-axis is quantitative variables. And on the x-axis, you'll have all of those different classes and widths that we talked about in our Google Sheet project. However, a histogram is going to have all the bars smashed up next to each other. So that is not what I have here because, first of all, this x-axis is not quantitative. This x-axis is measuring the social network. It's listing out the categories. So this is the number of people that used Facebook. This is the number of people that used X, okay? And also the bars are not next to each other, so it's not a histogram. This is a frequency bar chart, but don't circle that one just yet. What is a Pareto chart? A Pareto chart is a special type of bar chart where the bars go from highest to lowest. And that's actually what I have here. This is a frequency Pareto chart, okay? Um, if these bars had been out in alphabetical order, so the first one would have been, I don't know, I guess it still would have been Facebook, but YouTube would have been way over here at the end. Okay. Then the bars would have been all up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay. Um, Pareto makes it organized by having a nice like slope down where highest is first and lowest is last. Okay. Now it's not a relative frequency or relative frequency Pareto chart because my y-axis is whole numbers. Okay. Relative, you'll remember, is decimals. Okay. This is measuring not the percent of people that used Facebook, it's measuring the total number of people, the count, and the frequency. Okay. So this is a frequency Pareto chart. All right, explain why it is not appropriate to talk about the shape of this distribution. Well, why is it not appropriate? It's not, I think it's skewed left. No, sorry, skewed right, right? The tail goes off to the right, skewed right. Okay. Uh, but apparently that's inappropriate. Okay. Don't get me in trouble. So, why is it inappropriate to talk about the shape of this distribution? And that is because the social network is not quantitative. Um, no, let's write it as the x-axis is a qualitative variable. Okay. The x-axis in this case is your social network, and it you can't talk about skewed left or skewed right when you're looking at qualitative data. Okay. You can talk about probabilities, that's fine. You can talk about relative frequencies, that's fine. Okay. Um, but it doesn't make any sense if you are talking about shape. Okay. Um, and in fact, since this is a Pareto chart where we said the first bar is always the biggest and the last bar is always lowest, every Pareto chart is going to look skewed right. Okay. So in this case, it's not. Okay. I'll skip through some of that. We'll come back and do some of those in a second. Let's go on to page 306. The following graph shows the imprisonment rates in the US according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. What type of graph is shown above? Same thing. Is it frequency Pareto? Oh, I guess, but we don't have Pareto in here. Montez says it's a time series graph. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Montez. Thank you, Kevin. Our x-axis is time, so you got it. It is a time series graph. Okay. All right. Violent crime rate is an example of what? Qualitative, quantitative, discrete, quantitative, continuous. What do you think? Discrete, continuous, quantitative, qualitative. Montez says it is qualitative. Kevin says it's quantitative, continuous. So if this is the year 2026. If I asked in 2025, what was the violent crime rate? The answer that you're going to give me is a number, right? In 2025, we had, 300 violent crimes per 100,000 people. So in that case, it is quantitative, okay? The violent crime rate is how much, how many crimes were there in this year? Okay. So it's going to be a number. And you could do math on that. Okay. So Elaine is saying it's a rate. Yes. Now, is it quantitative discrete or quantitative continuous? Well, for our class, we're going to define that as can you use decimals? So the violent crime rate is the number of crimes per 100,000 people. So if in that year I had, let's say I had 2,000 violent crimes and there were 100,000 people, when I divide those, I'm going to get a decimal. Okay. I'm going to get 0.0, let's see, 0.02. Okay. The violent crime rate is, in this case, going to be 2. Okay. here you can see like, okay, maybe it's like 700.3, okay? It is continuous because you can use decimals. Now, if you want to argue with me that, okay, but there's only certain values, so mathematically speaking, it is discrete, I'm okay with that. If you want to argue, if you want to, give me that. Um, but you have to give me that explanation, okay? That, since we're dividing by 100,000 and we're taking a whole number divided by 100,000, there's only certain values. But we're not going to worry about that. For this class, we're going to say, yeah, you can have a decimal rate. Anytime you hear the word rate, a rate is always a division. And so rate is always something divided by something, which is going to lead to decimals, okay? So we're going to say it's continuous. Okay. We'll skip through some of that. All right, let's go to our last page, and then I'll stop the recording and we'll go back and go over the ones we missed. The graph here shows the number of games played by all NBA players in the regular 2024 to 2025 season. What type of graph is this? What do you think? What's your guess? Kevin's like, now this is a histogram. I gotta be right. Yeah. No, I mean, so I believe you are correct in this case, Kevin. Is it a frequency histogram or relative frequency histogram? Kevin's gonna thumbs up. Nice. Relative frequency or frequency? This one or this one? Give me a guess. 50-50 relative. Well, yeah, there's a 50-50 that's frequency and a 50-50 that's relative frequency. If you were going to guess, you could flip a coin, 50-50 chance. Caleb says frequency. All right. Frequency histogram. You can tell because the bars are measuring whole numbers. They're measuring a number of players. It's asking for the count of how many people played this many games. Okay. If your bars were decimals or if your y-axis was decimals, then it would be relative frequency. Okay. Now, you'll notice that so there were some people in the chat who were making guesses, and some of those guesses were right, some of those were wrong. I want to point out here that those people who got those questions wrong, they don't lose any points. I'm not marking anyone off. I'm not keeping track of who was right and who's wrong. When you're in the class, right, you guys are here to learn, and I want to hear your guesses. I want to hear your participation. And if you're like, I don't know, it's this one or this one, maybe, give me a guess, okay? Because you learn more when you get a question wrong than if you get a question right. Okay. Today's not test day. So if you get every question wrong today, that's okay. That's actually good. Okay. Because you learn more when you get a question wrong than if you get a question right. Because if you get a question right, you're like, oh, good for me. Okay. If you get a question wrong, you're like, wait, how did I get that wrong? And then you learn and you understand so that when it is test day, you don't make that mistake again. Okay. So yeah, histogram. If everybody's shouting, it's this, and you're like, it's a pie chart. Okay. I want to hear that guess. Okay. Especially if it is, and then you're like, aha, I got it right. Okay. All right. But anyway, so let's the shape of this distribution. Now let's pause for a second. Are we allowed to talk about the shape? Because earlier we said it was inappropriate. Okay. We said it was inappropriate because the x-axis in the other chart was a qualitative variable. In this case, games played is quantitative. So that means that we can talk about that. You can talk about the shape of a histogram. Can't talk about the shape of a Pareto chart or a bar chart or any of these other crazy things, okay? But in this one we can. So Kevin is saying it's skewed left. So Nicole as well says skewed left. I agree with that. If the biggest bar is here, I think that you would say that this tails off. There's a bump here and there, but that's fine. I think that this is skewed left. Okay. All right, games played is an example of, so Stella said that this one was quantitative continuous. Kevin says it's quantitative discrete. Okay. Now we all agree that it's quantitative. Okay. Can you have decimals? Okay. So if I went up to, you know, LeBron or whoever, and asked, how many games did you play last year? Do they count half of a game? So if you play the first half and you don't play the second half, does that mean you played in that one game, or did you play half a game? So I'm going to disagree with Elaine here because
Oh, you can't.
what's that? I can't
No.
disagree with you. So
Yes, you,
Elaine is saying that if you played half of the game, you played for 30 minutes, then you played in that game. So we should count that as one whole game. And I disagree. I believe that when they do statistics, if they count it by minutes. So if you played like 45 minutes, I believe they count that as uh, three-quarters of a game. Okay. So I am going to say that this is quantitative continuous.
but these are regular season games played. I thought that was a number of games played.
But if you look at like basketball statistics, they will say that you played 35.6 games
Oh, well, I don't know
per
that.
game. Hmm.
All right.
So,
That sounds good.
what if you put discrete? Am I going to mark you off for this one? No, I probably won't mark you off for this one. Okay. Because yeah, this requires a little bit of inside basketball knowledge, I guess.
Which I don't have. It
It's
looks like
fine. Yeah.
Montez does, though.
Montez, yeah. So, again, some of you are saying this, some of you are saying this, and not only in this case where you guys have it giving me different answers, Elaine and I were giving you different answers. Okay, so yeah, don't feel bad about getting a question wrong in the class. Okay, that's why we're here to learn. All right, let's do question D. The tallest bar has that's why I wrestled. Can't wrestle half of a match. So, the tallest bar has a value of 58 at the top. What does this mean in the context of the situation? Be specific and include discussion of the games and players. So that 58 is right here at 70. This number right here is 75, right? So this is the number of people that played between 70 and 75 games. Okay. Now, if you played exactly 75, that puts you on the line. Does that put you in this bar, this bar, or this bar if you played exactly 75? And the answer is puts you in this bar on the right. Okay. This is not actually 70 to 75. This is 70 to 74.9 or 0.999, whatever decimals you want to use. Okay. So what this means is 58 players played, okay, between, my goodness, this is not an English class. I'm not spelling well. 58 players played between 70 and 74.9 games in the 2024-2025 season. Okay. That's what that bar means. I don't know who those 58 players are, and I don't know if they all played 70 or if some played 70, some played 71, some played 74.3. Okay. But I know that 58 were in that class. Okay. All right. Uh, I'm going to stop the recording here and we'll go back and we'll fill in the answers that we missed. Okay.